is that Steph Curry is back from injury. Had a team-high 27 points. The bad news, AD put 39 on him, and Golden State lost again on the road. They're now, is it inexplicably, or maybe it's explicable, I don't know, 7-24. The defending champion, the veteran team, away from San Francisco. Here's a look at the standings in the West. Lakers are 11th seed right now, but that's not even really a seed. They're just 2.5 games away from the 6th spot, which is a seed, which would mean they wouldn't have to compete in the play-in tournament. Warriors are currently in the 5th spot. Timmy Goodtimes, Tim Bontemps is here with me in studio. You know, Tim, was it you or it may have been Legs? Someone convinced me because I couldn't figure out what's going on with the Warriors, right? Because at full strength, I'm like, yeah, they could easily chip up again this year. But usually it's a young team that can't win on the road. The Warriors, how does this happen? You can't buy a win on the road? And then it was either you or Legs or one of our basketball experts who said, well, listen, if you have an older team, a veteran team that's saving it for the playoffs, where are they going to show out? In front of the hometown fans. And where are they going to take the foot off the gas a little bit on the road? It makes me think that may be true, and that when the playoffs start, if this team is healthy, they could run the table. What about you?
I mean, look, part of it is the Warriors have not had their full group together for a lot of the season, right? When they have had their full group together, they've had the best starting lineup in the league by a very significant amount, which is why they're my pick to still get out of the West. But you look at that 7-24 number, there's 2 teams in the league with less road wins than the Warriors. The Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs. What do they have in common? They stink. The Golden State Warriors do not stink. It is wild that they are this bad on the road. It's wild they couldn't win that game yesterday with Steph back. And it is something they obviously have to change before the playoffs. But again, it has to be said. Steph Curry's first game back. Andrew Wiggins has not been here for a while. I'm still betting on the Warriors if they're fully healthy and ready to go. But this road thing is a real problem.
But you agree with that analysis, apparently, because they're going to have to win a game on the road throughout the playoffs if they want to advance. And I wouldn't put it past them. In fact, they might even be my favorite right now.
I mean, they are my favorite to get out of the West. But that being said, it's more to me because the West is not very good.
Meantime,
right? And I'm picking them because basically by default.
Meantime, the Lakers, if LeBron were healthy and AD, I would say, hey, maybe they have a kind of a chance. But we see this in the NBA a lot. When you put all your chips in for a guy like AD, you become top heavy, not very deep. Then you gain your resources, you gather them over time. The league allows that. And then you push them in. They missed on Russell Westbrook.
They certainly did.
So now they have to try to get that back up. I feel like this team next year, with a little luck, could be a real problem. But it's a wrap this year. Where are you on the Lakers?
I would agree with that. I mean, there's a chance that they get in the play-in tournament. There's a chance they hang around. Some of these teams that are in those 7 to 10 spots are certainly doing their best to try to slide back. The Lakers are certainly going to be pushing it to the end. They don't have their first-round pick, as we know. New Orleans Pelicans get it. So there's no reason for them to try to fall down and maybe get Victor Wembanyama in the lottery. They can't do that. So I think there's a chance the Lakers get in, especially if LeBron can get back. But the one thing I'll say, you look at that graphic, the team in 12th, the Oklahoma City Thunder, if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is healthy the rest of the year, he came back yesterday and played, Oklahoma City will be in the play-in. The Lakers will not.
The history of the Lakers say somehow they wind up with Wembanyama against all reason, right?
Maybe
it couldn't happen, but wait, how did that happen?
Not now.
Not until he hits free agency.
That's right.
Right, yeah, right, of course. Last night, LeBron will miss at least 2 weeks and was spotted on the bench wearing a walking boot during last night's loss. Los Angeles is sitting just outside the West play-in tournament. Won't get much easier for the Lakers over the next 10 days. They have a less than 50% chance to win 3 of their next 5 games, according to ESPN Analytics. The silver lining is that after tonight in Oklahoma City, they head home for 5 straight games in L.A. LeBron's former teammate and NBA champ, Richard Jefferson, is with me now. RJ, AD is not playing tonight because of a foot injury. First, what are your thoughts on AD missing a critical game for Los Angeles?
Well, look, if he's injured, then he's injured. There's not much to do it. I will, talk about, my thoughts on his availability, his dependability, right? Like the idea of having 2 superstars on your team is not only can you stagger them in your lineup and keep one on the court at a time. And that was part of the reason why they went to go get Russell Westbrook, is because they knew LeBron James was getting older. They didn't really feel like they can count on Anthony Davis's durability. So they tried to go get a third superstar. It didn't fit. We know how that went. But ultimately, the idea is if LeBron James is going to miss a couple of weeks, he should be able to count on, what was a former top 5 talent when he showed up. To be a top 5 talent, to be a top 10 talent. And so his availability, Anthony Davis, and he had an outstanding game last night. His numbers were just, 28, 19, 5 blocks. Like, look, his numbers were there. And then if it's just not consistently there, then it's not going to have the impact it should.
The numbers were there, but the question is, were those empty calorie numbers? Of course, he needs someone to get him the ball, and D'Lo also wasn't playing. I want to give you a take on what's going on with the Lakers, and I'm curious as to your reaction, RJ. I was in L.A. doing afternoon drive with Marcellus Wiley on ESPN radio when Kobe was there, and basically staged a behind-the-scenes mutiny because he didn't like D'Antoni's offense, and they were not going to make the playoffs in spite of getting Dwight Howard and Steve Nash to go with Kobe and Powell. And Kobe is playing himself 40, 45 minutes a game. And I said at the time, wait a minute, given his age and miles, we're heading injury here. You got to taper back. I even told Kobe that at the time. He's not trying to hear it because he willed the Lakers into the playoffs. But the cost was really the rest of his career. His Achilles went, right? I thought the same thing and has been saying the same thing about LeBron on this show, given his age and number of miles, RJ, and his usage rate. We are in uncharted waters. We've never seen a guy like LeBron do this late in his career. Wait a minute, we could be heading for a catastrophic injury. Now, he said, we saw it as it happened, I heard a pop. Like, people who think he's going to be back in 2 weeks, that seems unlikely to me. But then again, RJ, if they think this is nothing like an Achilles, maybe he got off light. Maybe the Lakers, he can still be LeBron, and going forward with LeBron and AD and a revamped supporting cast and more resources next year, they can still make a run. What do you think? Is this in a weird way like a blessing in disguise, like the kind of injury that could have been a lot worse?
Well, yeah. My brain doesn't go worst case scenario a lot of times, especially with any of an athlete's injury. You go to best case. That's just my brain. But to go back to your Kobe point, I was playing for the Golden State Warriors when he hurt his Achilles. And if you go back and look at the prior 2 or 3 games, he was logging 48 minutes. Now, don't get me some load management. That's not what it was. It was just more of like you needed to balance. You go back and look at Tim Duncan at the end of his career, how he was managed with the talent around him, with the structure around him. That's why when we were talking about this poorly constructed roster, it wasn't just a lack of shooting. It wasn't this. It's like, no, you have one of the older, greatest players that we have ever seen. Can you do what it takes to keep him fresh, keep him healthy? When you're asking him, especially last year when he almost won the scoring title, the only games that they were winning is when he was going for 40 and going for 50 and having to overexert himself. And then you come into this season with the exact same. Now, Rob Pelinka did a great job. I was critical of Rob Pelinka at the beginning of the year. He did a very good job around the All-Star break and around the trade deadline of getting a quality team. But it was almost too late. Now a little injury here. Now a sprained ankle by D'Angelo Russell. So this year is not. This year was never going to be, anything salvageable. So I just think that the Lakers, they did avoid a major injury, but ultimately all of the miles from the beginning of the season and even last season are starting to add up.
Looks like this season ain't the year, but it always looked that way. But as long as LeBron gets out of the woods and he's okay going forward, he's still basically LeBron. Lakers look like they could be set up if things go right with health for next year. That is the great Richard Jefferson. We are live in Boston.
Potentially, air quotes, I'm going to go ahead and call it devastating news for the Lakers. According to our Adrian Wojnarowski, LeBron James will be reevaluated in 2 weeks after injuring his foot against the Mavs Sunday. Woj adds the timeline is expected to be longer than 2 weeks, and where the Lakers are in the West standings could impact how soon it makes sense for him to return. All right, let's check out the standings. Oh, Lakers at 12. Trying to get to 6 ideally, or at least you got to get.
Let's start with getting to 10.
I was going to introduce you as my favorite piece of fluffy, friendly bread. The voice that you're hearing under there, y'all, is our Tim Bontemps, and we've been looking at these standings and just hypothesizing. Also, look who's here. Tristan Thompson, NBA champion, also giving us a shirt combo, Miami Vice energy. Look, okay, let me focus. Back. You are back, and you're alive in living color, my guy. Let's talk LeBron. And Tristan, I'm coming to you first as his former teammate. Your reaction, because literally yesterday, in this hour that we shared together, you talked about his focus and the care that he takes on his body.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a concern, but I think it's more of a concern for the Lakers as a team, just because their margin of error is just so small. You know, putting themselves in this big hole at this point of the season, you know, every win counts for them at this point. And of course, losing a guy like LeBron is a big loss, but they got to get together if they want to make some kind of push or get into the play-in.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, Tristan hit the nail on the head. The Lakers have such a thin margin for error at this point that any missed game for LeBron James is a problem. Look at the schedule. I mean, they're playing against all these teams right now that they've got coming up. They're not going to be favored to win any of these games with LeBron not playing. Obviously, these odds right here are just in general. You take LeBron out, they're obviously, well, our producer says they're updated with LeBron being out. I don't like their chances of winning any of those games with those 50% chances with the Timberwolves and Warriors without LeBron on the court. Because look, like we talked about yesterday, if you have LeBron and AD healthy, you like the Lakers to at least give anybody a difficult game.
Yeah.
You take LeBron off the court, we were talking about before the show. Ton of pressure on Anthony Davis, ton of pressure on the supporting cast to try to do something this team has not been able to do all year, make a sustained run to get over 500 and get into the top 10.
Okay, hear me out, my wise basketball counsel of NBA experience and reporters, right? Anthony Davis now, to your point, Tim, as we were talking pregame, has a tremendous opportunity, Tristan, to help continue to move forward the case that he can be a guy that the Lakers can build around. There's a significant age gap between LeBron and AD. Likely the Lakers do have to start at some point at least considering life without LeBron. I think that this is a big-time opportunity for Anthony Davis. Tristan, am I tripping?
No, you're exactly right. This is time for Anthony Davis to have, it's going to be a lot of weight on his shoulder, and it's going to feel like how he felt with the Pelicans, but this is what this team brought you in to do. You know, the offense is going to be ran through AD, but like you said, it's about everyone. It's about the collective group. And this is why they made this trade, to add depth. And depth is supposed to help you during times like this. Tyronn Lue, who was our coach in Cleveland, when we had moments when we didn't have Kyrie or K-Love, he always told us next man up mentality. So this is an opportunity for guys like Lonnie Walker, Jerry Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, Malik Beasley, guys that they came to add depth to their team, to step up to the plate and take bits and pieces of what LeBron brought to the table, and you see the numbers. Not one guy could do that, but it's going to take a collective group, and that's what they're going to have to do if they want to give themselves a chance to be in the play-in.
Well, when you look at those numbers right there, that's why the Lakers are in a lot of trouble without LeBron James. Obviously, it goes without saying, they're over 10 points worse per 100 possessions. He doesn't play. But look, in Sunday's game against the Mavs, Anthony Davis was the most dominant player on the court. Dallas couldn't do anything with him. They need him to do that game after game after game if they want to get into this top 10. And look, these teams around them, you know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is out for Oklahoma City. Karl Anthony Towns has been out for Minnesota.
Pelicans.
Pelicans, Zion Williamson has not played for a while. He's not going to be back for a while. Like, they're not the only team that's missing a guy. So, you know, everybody has talked about how much better the Lakers are after these trades, the depth they've added. Well, let's see if they actually are. If they are, they should be able to make a little bit of a push here.
In addition to that, though, guys, I think, one, I don't think that we should overlook D'Angelo Russell if he can get healthy and get back on the floor. Like, I think back to D'Angelo Russell when he was in Brooklyn. Like, he's a solid point guard in this league. But I also think because Darvin Ham has asked this group to take so much pride in the defensive end, you've got prototype guys on the wing. We saw what Jared Vanderbilt did in the matchup versus Dallas. Their defense can propel them maybe to do something special?
It has to. This team has to be, I mean, we've talked about it a bunch, right? They don't have a ton of shooting. This is going to have to be Anthony Davis and a hard-nosed defensive team grinding out wins. If they can do that and win a few games here, maybe they get LeBron back in a couple weeks, hang around 10th, maybe they get in the play-in. If they can't do that, they're going to be in a pretty tough position.
Tristan, what you got?
No, defense is definitely going to what they're going to have to hang their hat on. And defense is what wins you those tough games when it's a 2-possession, 3-possession game. And, you know, Darvin Ham, what he was able to do with Milwaukee and lead the defensive charge there, he's going to have to implement that more than ever right now. And Anthony Davis, you're going to have to play the 5. You're going to have to be big. Be the big Anthony Davis. Be that top 5 player that everyone knows you can be, because the time is now. And like you said, D'Angelo Russell, hopefully he comes back by Friday against Minnesota, a little extra bragging rights to go try to kick their tail because they traded you. So those guys are going to have to step up. And if they can do that, and if Jared Vanderbilt continue to be the X factor, if they can do that, they're going to give themselves a chance. And to be honest, I have them taking the Pelicans spot anyways.